Today we're doing brakes on the Element. Stick around. Today we're going to be changing out the mechanical Tektro brakes on the Pedego Element with a new set of hydraulic brakes, also from Pedego. A few things we're going to need for today are going to be a standard set of metric Allen wrenches, a Phillips head screwdriver. Of course, you're going to need your brake, hydraulic brake parts, and these are the Magura MT4E, I think 102s. I'll put a link in the description. I got these from Pedego. These are for the Ridge Rider bike, front and rear. Because we're going to have to disassemble the rear hydraulic line to get it through the frame, I got a bleeding kit as well. So we'll go through all these steps. Okay, for my first trick, I'm going to take compressed air. I've got it set to about 80 pounds. I'm going to put the nozzle in here. I'm going to actually straddle the tire. And as I blow air, I'm going to just pull the grip right off. Piece of pie. Okay, I'm going to unwrap all of these cable ties. Don't mind the singing, I have a helper today. And this Velcro here. Okay, got all those off. And now let's loosen the cable and start pulling the caliper off. So I think everything's a 5mm down here. Yep. Okay, the caliper is loose down there. Now we need to take the red line, which is coming from the, they call these something, whatever. It's the switch that turns the motor off, the motor inhibitor. So we just unscrew the ferrule and pull the line apart. Good there. And now I've already loosened this. Carefully just slide this off the end of the handlebars, like that. Okay, the only thing holding it together still is the cable stay. Probably not all the way. I'm going to leave it hanging right there. And we've got this caliper and brake off. Okay, the first thing I'm noticing is that these are star fittings. So one issue with upgrading your bike is that your standard toolkit is going to start getting a little bit bigger. Because if I ever have to adjust these in the trail, I'm going to need to keep this specific wrench on me. Torques, torques, torques. I feel like my helper's coming. Okay, let's start by loosening these T25 screws. Got plenty of play there. We'll just run this down onto the handlebars. I'm going to tighten these down really quick just to make sure that I don't need a spacer in there. Okay, those will be fine. I'm not going to need a spacer. Well, let's just install the caliper and then we'll route the cable last. You can see the caliper has this stopper in it to keep you from squeezing it and popping those seals out. Okay. And then the posts line up just fine. I'm going to start by putting a little blue Loctite on the two caliper screws. Just a dab. That was a pretty big dab. Just to keep things from backing off while we're riding. Pull this out. Feed the caliper on. Okay, that's all fine. That went on fine. If you watch my video on the suspension fork, I talked about bringing these caliper screws in until they're just snug. Not even snug, they're a little loose. And then you squeeze the brake as you tighten them down to make sure the caliper centers. So here's what I'm talking about. The caliper is just loose like this. I'm going to squeeze the brake and then I'm going to tighten these bolts up. That way the caliper self-centers. So with my left hand, I'm squeezing the brake. Right hand, I'm going to go ahead and tighten these down. And we're good. Okay, let's route this cable up through the cable stay. So I've got that in there, and then we'll just run this down. I'm not going to He-Man this thing, just enough to keep the stay in place. Let's put the motor inhibitor back together. Being that this is from the trail tracker, it looks like this is an exact match. Yes, it is. Thread that together, and we'll put our last cable tie. Okay, that's together. Let's put the grip back on and move everything back into position, and we'll call this side good to go. Okay, for putting the grip back on, it's the reverse procedure, but this time I'm standing on the other side of the bike and I'm straddling the frame so I can hold it. Now I'm going to put my palm against the end of the grip while I blow air and force it back on here. So let's move all of our gear back into place here. Tighten those brakes. Put our screen back in place. Okay, we're just tightening that down with a Phillips head screwdriver. Snug. Controls feel good. All right, just like that. The front is done. It's a few days later. Because as I finished the front caliper, I realized that there's more to this process than I had originally thought. I had originally shown you this bleeding kit that I purchased, and this comes with Shimano mineral oil and some other parts for Shimano brakes. Of course, these are Magura brakes. In fact, these are the Magura MT4E brakes. So I ordered the Magura bleeding kit, also about 20 bucks, wasn't too bad, but some key differences. First of all, it comes with the royal blood. This is the mineral oil specific to Magura. It comes with 2 syringes because their bleeding process is a little bit different than Shimano. It comes with a piece of tubing, which is going to help down at the caliper side. And the most important thing that I had overlooked was, you recognize these little clamps here that these came with for bleeding, but also right here you can see it came with 2 olives, the compression olives. It came with 2 hose inserts, and it came with an adapter, a tubing adapter here to adapt this tubing to the syringe and then to the caliper. When we run the brake line from the handlebars down through the frame and back to the caliper, we're gonna have no choice but to disconnect the hydraulic line, which means we're gonna have to cut it at the caliper. And then when we cut it, we need to replace this insert here, this hose insert, and the compression olive on that side. Okay, after a little inspection, there's a plastic cover that gives us a little bit of access to this cavity where all the lines come in and run under the frame. So I think there's only 3 screws that give you access to this thing. So there's 2 screws down at the base of the battery holder, and then there's 1 screw hiding up here that just holds the base plate from sliding around. So I already backed this one off, but we're gonna back the rest of these screws off, and we're gonna get some access down into this area. Okay, that's just loose. It doesn't seem to want to come out. I can't tell exactly why. We can carefully lift it up, and now you can see these 2 channels down here. So now we only have a gap from here to here that we have to feed line through, and then we can feed it down here a little more carefully. Okay, I'm gonna follow the wire, or this cable, and there are a couple clips that I have to disassemble. I see I count 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they also hold the motor wire as well. So we're gonna have to replace all of those. So I'll go ahead and just clip those free. It might be easier to have the back wheel off, but let's see if we can do it without. Okay, so the motor wire is now free, and so is the cable for the brakes. So on the back, since we have to feed this out, I am gonna remove this and back the ferrule off all the way. Caliper is free from the cable. Despite all that, I'm still gonna have to cut this crimp off the end because I'm not gonna be able to get this body off of here. Whoop. There's no going back now. Okay, now with the caliper off and the cable removed from the caliper, I'm gonna route this cable up through the frame. So it's this cable. And now I should just be able to pull it through the frame. And there it goes. Okay, it's time to get the switch gear, or excuse me, the handle off of the handlebar. So there's a 4mm ratchet, excuse me, a 4mm Allen head screw in this throttle assembly. So you just unscrew it. There it goes. And then the whole throttle assembly slides off. Keep in mind that it's still hooked up. So we're gonna just let it hang. Okay, we need to take the motor inhibitor switch and release it. So unscrew the ferrule just like the front side. And when it's separated, pull it apart. And now we should just be able to slide this handle off, cable and everything. So there's the whole assembly. Okay, we have our new Magura brake lever and master cylinder here. And let's mount our master cylinder. It's a throttle. Let's go ahead and attach the motor inhibitor now. All right, here's where things get really fun. It's time to remove one of these sides. I can either remove this section down here, or I can go to the master cylinder and I can pull this dust cover away and I can undo this side. Either way, it looks like it's going to be about the same trouble. This looks like a specialized fitting. So I'm going to use the olive and the compression olive and stem for this side. This is, I think, is an 8mm flats. I only have a 5/16. So I'm going to try to be careful taking that off in case I get fluid coming out. That wasn't on there very tight, so that's good. And pull this apart. So you can see the compression olive and the stem. Okay, I have a fresh blade on my knife. I'm going to go back to about the end of the stem here. And I'm going to cut. There's no going back from here. Okay. It's to come up through here. Okay. Okay, now that we have our line run all the way through the frame, we need to put this hydraulic system back together. The order was dust cover, then nut, then olive, then stem. So let's get this stem in here. Now what it seems like you do is you push this line as far in as it'll go, and then while continuing to put pressure on it. And so what I'm doing is I'm putting pressure on the hose while I'm tightening everything down, and that should position that hose end into where it's supposed to be. And then as we do this, the olive is going to compress and squeeze around that hose. Okay, so I just went until it seated. We won't know until we put it all together if it holds pressure. And now we're going to secure the caliper to the frame. Okay, the caliper is now installed. It's time to start bleeding the caliper. So we're gonna prepare our syringe first. And so what I've done is I've put the hose onto the end of the syringe, and I've run the nipple adapter onto the syringe as well. So I'm gonna fill this up to about 20 milliliters, and I'm gonna get all the air out of the syringe, and then I'm gonna remove the bleeder screw and screw this into place. Then we're gonna go to the master cylinder. All right, let's loosen the bleeder screw. And snug it down.
All right, I positioned the wheel and blocked it sort of from turning. What I want is this master cylinder to be about level. Now we need our other syringe. We're gonna loosen this bleeder and set our syringe up on top. Okay, now we're going to squeeze the syringe and watch the top for air to be coming out of the other syringe. So here we go, we're gonna start squeezing. Okay, I've got a few milliliters in. I'm gonna come up here and I'm gonna flick this master cylinder a little. Get any air that's trapped in it to free up. And keep squeezing. Okay, when we're disassembling it, we go in the opposite order. And the important thing is that we take the syringe off, we put the cap on so that when we go to the bottom of the system and unscrew it, we don't have all of our fluid drain out. So I've got the screw here. I'm gonna pull the syringe off and stop it, and then I'm gonna put the screw in. Here we go, we're gonna Velcro, and now I'm going to loosen this a quarter turn, get my plug ready, and now take this off. And plug. And I'm losing fluid. Okay. Part of buttoning the bike back up is I've got 4 new zip ties, and I'm gonna put these back on the little cable holders that they were started in. One under here. All right, let's also adjust our switch gear again. Okay. I had to hustle through the last few steps for dinner time, but the last couple steps to button the bike up are going to be to put this cover back on with the 3 screws you took apart, install the loom, install the Velcro loom holders, and then you need to take the bike out and do a couple slow full stops with both brakes to bed the brake pads in, at which point you're ready to go test ride it. I'll post a separate video on whether I think this was an improvement or not. But so far, the job is done and I'm pleased. Thanks for watching.